Hello, everybody, and welcome. It is March 8th, and this is lesson 7 of Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans webinar series. So today, what I'm going to speak about, usually I divide things up into level 1 and level 2. I'm going to do a lot of mishmashing at both levels today. I'm going to speak about the actual dance steps. What do I mean when I say dance like a flying rainbow lasagna? What are the actual dance steps? How do you actually do it? I say all the time, this is more than just an intellectual exercise. And I recognize also that this usually comes more at the end of the semester, more like, lesson 11 and lesson 13. But that because I feel, each week when I prepare for class, I say to myself, what is the thing that is most essential to speak about in terms of what our collective of consciousness is going through on this planet and elsewhere? Like, what do we need right now in our development? What are the best tools of the trade? So what I'm doing is saying, we need to talk about exactly how to do the flying rainbow lasagna dance, even if it's a little bit jumping ahead. So the first thing is, flying rainbow lasagna is a dance. It's not merely an intellectual concept. And when I say dance, it's intimately related to movement, to music, movement and music, movement through time. And music is also a time-based artwork and a time-based art form. And I spoke all about harmonics. This is 2 weeks ago. And I'm also going to talk about how to dance like a flying rainbow lasagna, but I also want to speak to some of the questions that people had about last week's presentation, where I shared the idea that we have all already died and that this happened. It's happened many times, but it happened most recently in mid-January with the Hawaiian nuclear missile scare. So let me do that first, and then we'll get into lasagna. Okay, and this is also really important. Like, I love getting feedback from other people. I send out a message in a bottle, and then all of these other messages reflect back to me, because I'm not just in a contextless vacuum that I'm sharing these ideas with others. So it became apparent to me, by the way, that people were reflecting what I had said last week, that many people were confused, and some people were even like concerned, perturbed, had an emotional reaction about what I was sharing. So let me clarify. So I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly who, and I'm getting my whiteboard going up, who asked me this question in a private message. Wanted to know, let me just get a better color, wanted to know where in the time vortex we are, because she wanted, like, if I'm making this the membrane of death, these are the membranes of death over here, membrane of death is highlighted in blue. Wanted to know, are we, like, you are here, are we here? Have we hit the membrane of death? Or are we going up this, let's call it green, going up this green central pathway that is the path of least likelihood, the pathway to becoming an ascended master, and also the experience of eternal life, or an infinite journey that never ends. Like, if you go on the membrane of death over here, that's not an infinite journey, that's a finite journey that you end and then have to go back to the beginning and try again. But that if we're on this central core timeline, that we don't have to do that anymore. And these are really excellent questions, because I didn't clarify. And I used the analogy that we are like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, because a caterpillar is stuck to the flat leaf of time. Like, it's a little leaf that I just drew right there, right? Here's little leaf. And a caterpillar can only move along this leaf, like, here's a little caterpillar with his little antennae or whatever, can only move along this leaf like this, and is stuck to the surface of time. And up until this point, that is what embodied humanity, embodied in physical, dense material form, that's what we have all experienced, as opposed to being a butterfly that can jump off the surface of the leaf and has these wonderful little wings and is able to fly around, can experience time in a new order that is not linear. So this little caterpillar goes like, here's the early part of the day, here's the middle part of the day, and here's the end of the day, and has to crawl through all of those moments in order to get to the end of the day. But a butterfly could be like, well, I want to fly over here to this moment, then I want to fly over here to this moment, then I want to fly to a completely different moment that's on a completely different leaf over here. It's a very different experience of time. And all of this speaks to the questions that many participants in the webinar had, because they wanted to know, where are we in time? So my assertion is that we are like in the chrysalis. We're in that moment of transformation between being a caterpillar and being a butterfly. We're becoming multidimensional or full spectrum humans, that we are in the process of awakening our higher faculties. So just like a caterpillar changes its perception and what it can see and feel into what a butterfly can see and feel. So right now, most humanity does not have an awakened set of higher faculties, the inner vision that allows us to see through time. Most humans don't see through time. If you could see the future, you'd avoid all of the crap that you don't want to experience, including death. That's the whole, what's the word that I'm looking for? Assertion that I'm making with this whole teaching is that before our genes were degraded, before we had to bootstrap ourselves on up out of this degraded position, everybody had activated higher faculties. Everybody could see where they were driving on the road of time. Everybody was able to successfully reach that ascension experience, and that it was only the degradation of our genetic code, the blinding of higher faculties, that made it necessary to constantly hit the membrane of death, circulate back over and over and over. So the idea that I shared last week was that we've experienced a collective massive death, but clearly we're still not dead. Like, look, let me get a drink. Here, look, I'm not dead. I'm drinking a smoothie. I'm not dead. Dead people don't have to drink food. Oh, sorry, that's my dog boss. Dog boss, you gotta quiet down. You wanna come over here? Hey, come here. I gave her that chew toy and she chewed it up in 5 minutes. Hey, come here. Sorry for the loudness, everyone. Cheeky, come here. They love you online. First of all, lots of people made beautiful comments. Come on up. Oh, that's wonderful. People made the best comments. She likes to lick my strawberry lipstick. The best comments, they said, we want more dog. We love Cheeky. Cheeky's my awesome boss. Here, I'll tilt this down so you can see her a little bit better. Here's Cheeky. She's the best. All right. Yeah, we love Cheeky, Chiquita. So yeah, I give her like these really healthy, organically made cow ear dehydrated chew toys that are good for her teeth and everything like that. And they're supposed to be like long lasting. And I give them to her like right before I get started, and she's done with them in like 5 seconds. So, you know, it's like trying to give the kid a little toy to keep him occupied and everything. And then she's ready to go in 5 minutes. So I said to her, hope that you'll be on the video because everyone really likes you being on the video. So she's sitting on my lap. We're all prepared for this. So that's really good. So back to this idea. Some people were very concerned or even angry because I'm a cultural outsider. This is like if you move to a foreign country, like if you're from America and you move to Thailand and you're like, you don't know what the language is, you don't know what the culture is, you don't know how people are going to perceive you. So I'm, in innocence, sending out these thoughts and ideas unaware of how I'm going to be perceived and the filter of communication through which I will be interpreted. So from what people reflected back to me, it became apparent some people were even angry because they're used to this idea of being their trajectory of time is out of their control. And I understand that's appropriate anger. I wanted to validate that in this video today, that it's totally appropriate to say, I don't like it that some other supernatural force, not me, has spent time in my life determining where I am on the road of time. You know, either limiting my lifespan or my trajectory, saying, no, you're not allowed to drive down that road, you have to drive down that road, or even creating death or limiting incarnation or reincarnation. That's appropriate. It's appropriate to be pissed about that, and that people should make every effort possible to reclaim and re-empower and be in control of your own life and your own trajectory. So that is totally right and appropriate. Again, I see us as being, so when you're going through that wormhole, there's like right at the very top of that time vortex that I'm always drawing. Here, you can see my mouth is right at that little vortex. There's like only enough room for one little timeline to sneak through there. And there are many other peripheral timelines just next to it. And what I'm seeing, you stick with me, kid. When I was talked about more kisses, I love you, I love you. Aw, thank you very much. Okay, all right. That idea of Deus ex machina, or the hand of God reaches out. So my assertion is that we actually, like if you're driving down the road of time and you go over the cliff and the cliff is like death or hitting the membrane of death, my assertion is I think we actually did hit the membrane of death or almost go over the cliff. And then the idea is the hand of God, something beyond us, beyond mere, earthly, mundane, embodied humans. Thank you, baby, thank you. Reached out, scooped us up and reinserted us all collectively. And that this is also not something to be like angry or disturbed about, because it means you get a reprieve, you get another chance. But like, I understand that people are like, oh no, like now I have to go back to my crappy life. Like if you don't like your life, then it's not considered to be a good reprieve. One person who reached out to me, I was like, Aurora, like what's going on with this we're already dead concept? And we talked about it, and he's like, well, I'm spending my life doing what I love to do, so I have no problem with this. And that I felt was a very emotionally balanced, just muting everyone, not because I don't love you, just that my recording doesn't get feedback, very emotionally balanced, very, mature and refined response. And that, just to share a little bit, because I'm a walk-in, right? I came into this body in 2001 after there was a literal metabolic death of this body, and the previous occupant's ego had been destroyed. And for a long time, when I was experiencing being in this body, in this time and place, I didn't know in the beginning, am I alive? Am I dead? Am I in the afterlife? What are the rules here? Like I told you, when I first came here, I tried to just eat nothing but pure sunlight, because that's what I'm used to. And then I had to learn, like, that doesn't work for this body. I got really weakened and very, hungry, and my body was very small. And I'm like, okay, we clearly need to do something more. This is not adequate. So I had to learn all these different things. And here's what I came up with as my basic way of navigating reality. Like if my body can be hurt, if my body, can suffer, then even if we're in a dream, I must treat the dream as if it is a reality. So big takeaway, big caveat, whatever I'm speaking about, if I'm speaking about the level of reality or consciousness that we're experiencing, is it a real world? Is it a dream world? Are the people around us real or unreal, or figments or fantasies? When I speak about all of this, and I've said this in other videos too, please do not ever take my words or my concepts as a justification for violence, either towards others or self-violence or destruction. Like I said, don't just go Dwayne Hoover. It was from Breakfast of Champions, the name, not Dwayne Hoobler. That's a different character. The guy that grabs the machine gun and starts to shoot everyone up because he reads the science fiction novel that says that he's the only real person in the world. It's Dwayne Hoover. So don't turn into him. Grab your machine gun and start shooting people. No, and I hope I'm not using too many keywords that say machine gun that make it so that my video can't get around. Share my videos. It's hard for people to find them. No, if you figure out that you're in a dream, or you're in an afterlife state, or you're in a supernatural experience, not the regular mundane world. I recognize that there are very disturbed people, but it would take a very disturbed person to be like, oh, good. Like, here's a justification and an opportunity for me to just become violent. Like if you realize that reality wasn't real, and you think like, oh, I can now treat this like some kind of first-person shooter video game, like that's a disturbed person. Because if I think, oh, the world isn't real, you know what? Instead of picking up a gun, I want to pick up a paintbrush. I'm like, screw society. I want to spend my time painting paintings, or I want to pick up a guitar, or I want to, like play with my dog or something like that. I gotta drink water. So the idea is, if we are experiencing a transformed level of consciousness, if we're no longer in a regular world, some people, the response I understand is like a psychopathic response, like, oh, now I want to kill others or try to kill myself, but I'm not advocating that at all. I don't want anyone to say, oh, Aurora said in a video that we're all dead, so I'm just going to drive off a cliff literally. No, not at all. That is not my assertion at all. And I'm not saying to anyone that you should say, we're all dead, therefore it's okay if I shoot or kill other people or make them drive off a cliff or poison their food. And none of those things are okay. Just being super, super clear. And I always think like the people that are in this class and that I've interacted with personally are mostly, very balanced and loving people. But I do forget that someone might access these videos, or someone might access them out of order without context, and that they might get a twisted idea of what I'm actually talking about. So I'm just being super clear. Yeah, I believe that we are in a supernatural state, somewhere between what we would call mundane life and what has been described as afterlife or the death experience up until this point. That we are literally like the caterpillar in the chrysalis, going through this transformation of consciousness. So someone wanted to know, did we actually hit the membrane of death? I don't think we did, or if we did, it's like we got rewound the videotape, rewind the videotape and try it again. So that's what that phrase, Deus ex machina, means. It means the hand of God reaches out. It's this plot contrivance from ancient Greece. And I see it as scooping up the entire earth. Like I'm making this motion now of scooping up the entire earth and bringing it off of that pathway where we would have died and shifting us slightly towards those timelines of eternal life. So if I were to draw it, like I'm drawing the time vortex that I draw all the time, go back to this. Because remember, when we're getting to this level of being able to go through this green wormhole, there are these peripheral timelines, the left and right, that do end on the membrane of death. Like that one ends on the membrane of death, and that one does too. And there's not much of a difference between these two timelines. Like there's very, very little difference between them. So the idea is we might have been on this pink timeline and oops, we hit the membrane of death. And what happened was we literally got edited out and reinserted, like whoop, we're just going to make a little loop and stick you back over here so that then you can try again. So that it's like you get another, if this is like a video game, get another life, get another people don't put quarters into video games anymore. I must be appearing like I'm a relic from another century, and I probably am. You know, you used to like put a quarter in the video game and then you get another life. So that's how I am perceiving this, that a supernatural experience happened so that we do not have to die before we can make this transformation. Like if we were going to go over a cliff, you're walking on a sidewalk and all of a sudden there's no more sidewalk, you're gonna go over a cliff, magically a new piece of concrete has been poured in front of us and that there's more sidewalk for us. And then as we reach the end of that piece of concrete, there will be another new magical square of concrete, enough sidewalk for us to keep on walking through time until we have the experience that we need to transcend and become purely abstract. So what used to happen in ancient Atlantis was you lived in a body of total comfort, connected to the divine the whole time, not being disconnected. And then ascension was what happened when you were bored, like you were done. Like I've read all the books and I've eaten all the food and I've done all of the experiences and I've talked with everyone that I need to do and I've done everything I need to do and said everything I need to say. And now I'm ready to move into an abstract state. That means no longer having a face, no longer having a mouth, being like one of these paintings in connecting with the time field. And I don't know if we will have that much sidewalk to walk on, but the whole idea is that we're having a collective like resolution of our personal traumas and planetary traumas. So my assertion is that what we need in order to go through the wormhole and get to that central core timeline of ascension and transcend, go from caterpillar to butterfly, is profound healing. That whatever, to understand the origins of one's personal trauma and our planetary and social trauma in order to be ready to let go of all that was and have a completely new experience of something new. So the idea is we're not going to carry with us our traumatic experiences of being a caterpillar. Like, oh, I was a caterpillar and I fell off a leaf and then I thought I was, you know, a goner and a bird was going to eat me. Like that's the experiences of being a caterpillar. And in order to become this new multidimensional form of what expanded form of what a human truly is, that we need to be able to let go of all of the traumas that happened to us when we were blind, when we didn't know how to see through time, when we didn't know how to navigate the time field, when we didn't know how to rewrite reality. So all of those negative experiences and the things that held us back, we get to come to a resolution on. So this is how I am also understanding what's happening socially and politically right now, that we are seeing whatever, like revealing or transparency of things that were formerly hidden, and that this is all intended for healing. That we need to see these things. We need to see the profound political corruption, the rape and pedophilia that has been powering our entire economy and political structure for thousands of years, like whatever, maybe all of recorded human history, and to also see negative social dynamics, negative family dynamics, because all of these political unfair traumas that have happened have also been tied to our individual families and how we relate to our parents and siblings, that it's worldwide healing. So what we need in order to go from caterpillar to butterfly is this whole idea of massive healing and being able to let go of the trauma that many people allow their trauma to define them. They say, I am this person that has this scar because of this bad thing that happened to me. And I'm really saying that in order to experience profound healing where you don't have a scar anymore, it means that we are able to let go of the events, and to let go of those events, it's like we understand them profoundly. So in Atlantis, the ascension might have been about like, I did all the things that it's possible to do with the physical body, and then I was ready to have a non-physical abstract body. And here it might not be. Sarah Jane is saying compassion for self and others. That's exactly it. Compassion is literally heart coherence. So now I'm going to start jumping into flying rainbow lasagna. The idea of your own personal vibration affecting other people's vibration. So compassion, I'm going to now draw two guitars. These are very, roughly shaped guitars here. Here's guitar number 1, and here's guitar number 2. Thank you for allowing, like, this pen is not the best pen in the world. And of course, there's all these wonderful strings on the guitar that are what make the actual music. If I vibrate the strings of this guitar over here, well, let's use green as the color. If I make these strings vibrate and they start to send out these sound waves that vibrate the atmosphere, what happens is these strings over here start to vibrate even if I didn't strum them with my little fingers or with a little guitar pick. They start to make the same vibration and the same music because all of this music is coming over here and affecting these guitar strings. That is literally what compassion is. Compassion means we've got one person's heart center, which is green. That's why I draw these colors. This is like your energy center or chakra that is green, and it's emitting the tone of love, and we're emitting that tone when we move through time at one moment per moment. And here's somebody else's heart over here, and what you're sending out with your waves comes through the atmosphere. But in this case, the atmosphere is not just physical air around you, it's time. It moves through this time, space, and consciousness to affect this person over here, and then this person over here also starts to emit that tone because it's what you sent out. So this is the whole idea of compassion, that and in the Buddhist practice, or the practice from the Far East of meditation and compassion, what we do is try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Like the story about the Buddhist monks that were being suppressed in the 1950s by the Chinese soldiers, the invasion and suppression of Tibet, and that the Buddhist monks imagined in the place of the soldier, like what made them become soldiers? Why are they acting the way they're acting? Why are they doing this? And the answer is, well, because they didn't have other options. They were conscripted from their villages. They were literally, forced to do this at gunpoint. So it's that understanding. So it's not a free pass. I'm never a demonic apologist. I'll be very, very clear on that. Everybody has to take responsibility for what they have done or their response to their life situation. But this also means that compassion means you understand, like, why is that person acting the way they are acting? When Cheeky down here, when she barks at another dog, I try to think, like, why is she acting in that way? What's in her past? What's in her background? What's creating this behavior that makes that happen, instead of just being angry or annoyed or something like that. So this is how this is how compassion can be shown behaviorally towards the other people and beings and things and organisms around us. It is the understanding, like, where does that come from? What is inside of them? What is motivating them to act and behave in this way? And that others are doing the same for you. That someone is saying, why is Aurora painting these rainbows? Why is Aurora painting these extensive polygon projects? Why do I do this? That would be projecting compassion towards me. So this is the whole idea. We're all musicians in a symphony, and everything that we send out as a vibration, your emotional vibration, which comes from your DNA, your intellectual vibration, which also comes from your DNA, and how you're affecting the time field, that all of this is affecting everyone around you, and everyone includes microbes and blue whales and the planet herself and other people and dogs, and that you're also being affected by everyone around you. That, when I'll take all those kisses, thank you. I'm telling you, she loves my lipstick flavor. Cheeky's like my external battery pack, and she gets lots of energy and then gives it back to me in wonderful increments whenever I need it. So it's really wonderful. We do sun gazing together. So we'll get into how to do the flying rainbow lasagna, because this is also a part of vibrating that membrane that separates us from others. When you practice real compassion, start to understand profoundly the interconnectedness of organisms and intellect and energy. And then it begins to become apparent that you're not just, oh, you can jump down, there you go. Not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool. What you are doing is affecting others. So I understood that my journey coming here as Aurora, I'm not sure if I have to open the door. No, everything's fine. My journey coming here as Aurora, I understood would profoundly affect the other musicians around me. And ethically, like in terms of cosmic ethics, I'm allowed to do this. So I've said many times, it wouldn't be ethical if I was like on an interdimensional cloud, eating nothing but strawberries, having a wonderful, peaceful existence. And I was just like, oh, those poor trapped humans down there with their degraded genetics. I'll just wave my magic wand and poof, I'll send them some energy and something will get better. That's not how you do this type of thing. You do it by actually, like, you do your magic by actually being embodied in the realm and then sending out that energy, making a song. I'm singing a song, this is my song, and I know that my song is affecting others, and I know that I'm being affected by others. So all of this, I've been here for about 17 years as Aurora, since 2001. All of this has been a justification, or like the reason why I'm acting in the way I'm acting is that this is to give people an opportunity, like, to join the band. It's not mandatory. It's not an obligation. It's an opportunity. You can join the band and you can practice a new song, and this new song allows you to have additional degrees of freedom. So I know I'm mixing up level 1 and 2 because usually I teach this towards the end of the semester. This shape is the flying rainbow lasagna shape. It is the higher dimensional version of this shape, which is the torus. So we could say, in terms of math speak, what cube is to tesseract, torus is to flying rainbow lasagna. The tesseract is the higher dimensional, next highest dimensional form of the cube. And if you look at an animation of a tesseract, it looks like a cube constantly unfolding from within itself. So I have animations of flying rainbow lasagna, and I'm working on more of them, and I'll share them with you, and I'll link to older ones. The idea is, when we take this shape, this is the shape that we've been in, or that our time structure, non-physical energy structure of our body has been in for the past, whatever, 10 or 20,000 years. I mean, it's been that way since our inception. I'm just putting this other one down. But the challenge is that we've been perturbed. Instead of just going up that central core timeline, like this, going perfectly up the center, like that drawing that I always do, our energy centers have been wibbly and wobbly. And that means that a lot of the time, our needle of awareness is focused on hitting the membrane of death. Look, we're going in the wrong direction. We're hitting the membrane of death. So it's not necessarily that we need to stop being in this shape. There's nothing wrong with this shape. It's a perfectly nice, totally awesome shape. But the challenge was that contextually, instead of being at this nice, perfectly erect angle that we're supposed to be at, we were wobbling like this, like a bicycle that's wobbling instead of driving down the street the way it's supposed to. And that's what our experience has been for almost all of recorded human history. And that's also why we've had to go through all of the histrionics, the iterations of looking at every single possibility at the periphery before we reach that central core timeline. So flying rainbow lasagna, this means that we get to transform into a higher dimensional state. We regain our higher faculties, and you can rearrange the events that are on the surface of the membrane of time, and those events are death. So I'm going to now talk about time on the membrane of death and vortex math, and how vortex math and all of this rearranges into flying rainbow lasagna. So the first thing is, if you're new to this class, this is the shape of time. This is also the shape of the chakras, or energy centers of your body. Chakra just means spinning wheel. It comes from Sanskrit. It means their version of a charioteer. You can imagine each one of these, like this is a wheel, and this is a wheel like a chariot that would ride down the road. And we've got one wheel, another wheel, one down here, one up here. That's at least 4. And then we have 1, 2 that are implied. So we have essentially like a cube. We have like 6 of these. Sorry, the sculpture is very delicate. That are combined together. Now we'll get into my little shorthand. If you look at the lower quadrant of this physical sculpture, you can see what it looks like on end. You can see what it looks like in profile. So this is review. I'm talking fast for anyone who's already been in this class. Here's the review. This is the lower portion of that sculpture, which, you know, ordinarily, if I were drawing everything perfectly, I'd draw that like you know, like these would be rounded, right? But I draw them like flat cross sections so that we can see things more easily. And we understand that this, I have an exaggerated wormhole up here. It's not that big. It's only big enough for one little timeline. And that central convergence point that all of these lines emerge from and return to is like the source of consciousness. And that the basics are, we have this central timeline here that is your true self, and it's your infinite self, and it's your eternal life, and it's the one that it is connected to the source and the destination and never is disconnected from the source and the destination. But, and due to our genetic squashing, what we've been experiencing is, instead of starting out here where this pink dot is, we start out at the periphery, which if we equated this to an old-fashioned analog record, again, I'm a relic from another century, but I'm sure some of you guys are too, that's a record like that you listen to music on. And we start with the groove. There's a groove that goes all the way around this whole entire flat little disc, and then reaches its final culmination, the last note of the last song in the center there. And that we've had to go through that whole entire spiral of the song of your life. So when I draw these timelines, I draw them like this, but we understand that that is a shorthand, visual shorthand. They actually spiral all the way around this rounded vortex shape, but it makes it harder for me to share these ideas. So we start off at the beginning here and move upward, and just a moment later after we're born, we die. And that's that membrane of death. So each, and then have to circulate back around. We start over here and go up here and make another death. And those deaths, I call them your last moment. It's also your final denouement, like the snapshot at the end of a movie. And all of this in order to tell you that all of the little pink circles that I'm drawing here, these are all last moments of your life. And that's not just on one side, it's on both sides because it's a cross section. Each one of these is a last moment. And that last moment has as part of it the implication, all of the things that led up to it, but we don't have to record everything that led up to it. We just can record that last moment to say everything, you know, this all led up to this. And this is the important takeaway on this is that the membrane of death, I'm now drawing it like a very thick, exaggerated membrane. It's supposed to be a place of entropy where there's no movement and there's no motion, and all that we have are these versions of the cake that didn't work. Like, these are not the eternal versions of you. These are all of the trial and error. You tried it, it didn't work, tried it, it didn't work, tried it, it didn't work. So think of that, like I'm gonna draw little stick figures, like sticking off of there, like here, that's you. That's a little version of you. That's like your little head, that's your little head, that's your little head. They're little dead versions of you. And that is what the membrane of the torus is made up of. And we can even think of it like the end result of a complex series of computations. 1 plus, you know, that doesn't even look like a plus, plus, that doesn't look like a plus either. This pen is so hard to work with sometimes. 1 plus 4 plus, you know, 237 plus, et cetera, equals the last moment of your life. Now, all of this relates to vortex-based math, and then I'll get into the flying rainbow lasagna. So let me show a picture. I squint and scroll. Hold on a second. Getting there. Hold on a second. Vortex-based math. Okay, so I didn't invent this. This is wonderful work, and you can check it out. It is by the teacher Marco Rodin, and I'll write that name, R-O-D-I-N, who has also created some physical expressions of the torus shape that are known as Rodin coils. And Rodin coils are what happen when you take, let's just switch to a different color here, this torus shape over here, and you wrap it in a very particular winding pattern with actual copper wire. And so I have some examples of that too that I can show you. But when you do that, and when people have been experimenting with these, they develop some very interesting magnetic anomalous qualities and also electrical anomalous qualities. And that has everything to do with this idea that, you know, you've got a wire like this with electrons flowing in a wire in this direction, but that it makes a magnetic field at 90-degree angles that is around the wire like this. So magical, quote unquote, things start to happen when we wind the wire in just the right pattern around this torus shape because of the interaction and harmonic amplification of the overlapping magnetic fields. That's secondary to the higher dimensional information that I'm talking about now. I hope you can see on this drawing that there's all these little numbers, that the surface of the torus has been cut up into a grid and mapped, And the map is very similar to a Sudoku puzzle. If you ever play Sudoku, there's like these little grids. You can see I'm drawing this grid up here. And the grid has numbers in each of these little boxes, and the numbers cannot repeat, and they must be in a particular pattern in order to solve the game. And if you solve the game, then you win the Sudoku. So this is like saying your life is a big, giant puzzle. And all of these numbers are arranged on the surface of the torus, which is the membrane of death. All of those numbers are the final denouements, the final combination of sets of thoughts and ideas and experiences and opportunities that either lead you towards death or towards the greatest unlikelihood, which is eternal life. But the greatest unlikelihood is also an inevitability. You're going to reach that last song on the record no matter what, as long as you just keep the needle on the record. It's just going to keep on spiraling in and playing. But that's been causing a lot of suffering over many thousands of years that we don't have to experience anymore. Flying rainbow lasagna, this is how we go from being a caterpillar to a butterfly and jump to a different leaf, jump to a different timeline. So this, what I'm showing you here, this torus that is mapped on its surface, it is mapped with your last moments, your final denouements, the membrane of death. Now we're going to get into the flying rainbow lasagna, this shape here, and how it relates to a torus. Okay, back to photos. I've got it all meticulously saved for this class. Hold on a second. I know I'm meticulously saved, but I have to find the picture right here. And now use my very sophisticated visual aid. So in this picture, what you see are two tori. First, I'll draw this one in red. We've got the one in red that we'll call in the top or up position. And then we've got the one that's in blue. We'll call this one down here in the lower or bottom position. My pen doesn't always work at the bottom of the screen, so I'm trying to make it work. There you go. At the bottom, now it's not working. Oh, let's try it again. Do it. Here we go. This, nope, not working. Got it. Better. This blue one down here. Okay, there we go. And now you can even, I don't know if you can do, there we go. So we have my little torus sculpture, my little yellow torus. In order to create this flying rainbow lasagna shape, this sculpture jumps up and down. It is actually, these are the same two tori. It's just one half of the time it's down in the blue position and half of the time it's up in the red position. And when it does that jumping up and down motion, you can see how it creates this flying rainbow lasagna shape in the interior. And what we're doing is combining different possibilities. Some of the possibilities from the blue membrane down here, and then some of the possibilities from the red membrane up here. And this means that we're starting to combine equations. These are opportunities, these are possibilities. So let me show you with my, I'm joking here, my very fancy piece of paper. So this is my visual aid here. First of all, you can look at what it's shaped like. So this is shaped kind of like, you know, like a portion of a vortex, and it should be kind of bent a little bit. One side, I don't know if you can see that properly in the light. One side I have colored very hastily red, and one side I have colored very hastily blue. So this fits inside of here perfectly. Let's see if you can see that on camera. I know I'm fiddling with things, be patient. Good, you can see that pretty well. That looks pretty good. So you can see, and what we've got facing the camera is the red side. The lighting is not that great for being able to see that, or the camera doesn't necessarily pick it up, but you can see that red side is the, let's call it the exterior. It's like facing the room that we're in. That is the exterior of the membrane of death. And I don't know how well we can see it if I switch it around. That's the blue side. The blue side would be the quote unquote inside. So you see like this red side is what faces the room, and the blue side is what faces like the inside of the balloon. And if we don't flying rainbow lasagna, those two sides can never communicate. The past and the future can never communicate. The inside and the outside can never communicate. It's like saying the bubble of time, the present moment, divides the past from the future, and those two aspects can never communicate. The things that have already been established in the past with the potential for the future can never effectively meet and share ideas and information. But when we make this entire sculpture jump up and down very fast. What happens is half of the time we've got this little membrane pointing downwards, but half of the time it's pointing upwards. And when I just did that, I got to put it all down so you can see it properly. I just made the flying rainbow lasagna that beginning shape that you can see. I got to fold it a little bit. Look, I made like a little dimple there like that, and make a little dimple here like this. This is almost like making some kind of origami. That's exactly what we're doing with time. So I just split that membrane. I'm going to go back to the pic image, and you can see what I drew on the image. And I know this is a little blurry too, but when I hold this up, I hope that you can see now that the red part becomes connected to the blue part. The inside and the outside all of a sudden become connected. So it used to be, oh, look, this is all the outside. Oh, look, this is all the inside. When we begin to vibrate that shape in a higher dimensional, thank you, Patricia. Patricia says, this is awesome. Let me read this. Let me read this. She says, that we have watched you evolve, and we are too. This is what I'm talking about exactly. So yes, I'm being able to share these ideas with more and more clarity. Like it's always been it's like if you're a musical, very proficient person, just naturally, you're just really good at playing music. And then it's like, how do I even talk about where I get my ideas for songs and chords from? And so now I'm getting to be more articulate. Oh, let me just make sure that everybody's muted, not because I don't love you, but just because I want to make sure that there's no feedback. Cool. So this shape means that the outside and the inside all of a sudden become communicative. So the different things happen when we start to do the flying rainbow lasagna dance, and I'll get into the actual specifics of how we do it. But like in terms of music theory, what's happening with your instrument, this is what is happening with your instrument. Now here, do you see the shape that I'm making when I hold this? And here's the red side on top, and here's the blue side on the bottom. So this is red outside and this is blue outside. We have just changed the outside, what is manifested in what is known as the external world of other people and hard-edged objects, now is half inner and half outer, half your imagination, half external manifestation. So now if I go back to that drawing that I was just showing you, get my magical drawings to come up. And you see, and I'll show you on my picture too, this right here. Now you see what I'm talking about. We have half of the time, and I'm holding it as close to the camera as I can. Oh, I should do it just like it is in the picture. Wait, make it just like it is in the picture. Boom. There you can see it. Half of the time, the membrane of death is in this position up here, and half of the time, the membrane of death is in this position down here. And that is what is creating, just grabbing my pen, get the little pencil to go. That is what is creating this flying rainbow lasagna shape that's in the middle. So the one side that I colored red is up here, and the other side that I colored blue is down here. And this means that once we start to do this genetic oscillation, your interior realm and your exterior realm become communicative. No longer is this the separation and the excuse or justification. My inner world is all me and the outer world is all you guys. You're all not me. Now it becomes that the inside and the outside are communicating together. So the ideas that I'm sharing with you are having an impact on your DNA, but the dance of how to do the flying rainbow lasagna is not merely an intellectual exercise. So of the 17 years that I've been here, I've been doing this dance the whole time. However, it's taken, just like being a piano prodigy or whatever, it's taken time for me to be able to say, how do I even like cut up what I'm doing into steps that I can share with other people. So I spoke about all this like for a couple of years. One of the students in my class, David Lear, he's still in the class, wrote a wonderful like PDF description after watching my videos of exactly how to do the dance. So I'm going to share that in the description of this video, and I'll share for some people. I also had to learn. So I learned very well by listening to things like auditorily and also visually, like looking at diagrams of things. Some people learn really well by reading a written description of what it is. So like in terms of sharing the recipe for lasagna, I didn't have the capacity to write a written recipe, like the dance steps, how to do it. So another person stepped in who has that wonderful capacity and wrote it in a way that I could share with other people. So I can share this with other people. So it's not just an intellectual That cool, Patricia. It's not just an intellectual exercise, but learning new ideas changes the dance of our DNA. So now I'll go into more visual expressions. Your DNA is constantly dancing. It is not a static object. It is a dynamic object that has behavior. And when I say has behavior, it's just like Cheeky has behavior. Sometimes she's doing one thing, sometimes she's doing another thing, dependent upon the context and dependent upon what is happening in the world. So each one of our DNA, and you each have unique DNA, it does something, it behaves in response to our environment. So it's not always doing the same thing. That's why it's very disingenuous to think like, oh, I'm gonna steal your DNA. I'm gonna take a snapshot of what your DNA is doing right now, and then I'm gonna take that and put that into whatever, cross it with a pig gene or something like that. Like, that's quite naive or not understanding the totality. Teddy's saying Bruce Lipton, I refer to his work all the time. Hi-ho, that's really, really good. Bruce Lipton is an excellent experimental biologist, evolutionary biologist. And he has helped to bring this consciousness, there you go, cellular biologist, into more of what like the mainstream or science-minded people can accept. It is epigenetics. Let's write the word so everyone can see the word, because some people learn better by seeing. Write it out. It takes a second for the pen to come up. Epigenetics, meaning the code that rules the code. And that's because DNA is considered to be a code, like a blueprint, that determines what are your earlobes shaped like, what color are your eyes, what color is your hair, and other things like the health and vitality of your body. But that's so cool too. Teddy's saying he met Bruce Lipton and that he was awesome. He seems from his videos that he's a very, cool, accessible, person that you could share ideas with. So that's really wonderful to hear. Your DNA is not just, sorry, Teddy. Teddy's a female. I didn't mean to say the wrong thing. Thank you for understanding. Your DNA is not just something that determines your physical shape of your protein structures, or even whether you develop a disease like cancer or not, because identical twins do not develop identical diseases. That is a crucial takeaway. The identical twins start out with the same blueprint, but they don't build the same house when your house is your physical body. They build different houses, sometimes profoundly different houses. And the reason for that is epigenetics. And that means that DNA, in order to be read, I'll do this with my hands, DNA, most of the time, is tightly curled up like an old-fashioned papyrus scroll. And the RNA messengers cannot get inside to read what's in the scroll because it's so tightly curled up. This is methylation. So when we want to read the pages of the book of DNA, it has to be unfurled. Now let me show you pictures of this that will be even better than my flapping, moving mouth parts. And don't worry, I'll go into level 2. I'll continue with all of this. So we've got bum, 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 bum. This is, so first of all, the word chromatin, you see this written here, chromatin structure and epigenetic hallmarks. These are not my created images. I took them as snapshots from a video that is like a science-based video where these, what you see over here, this is actual, they're electron scanning microscope images of DNA that have then been augmented with computer-generated imagery. So it's close to getting a real snapshot of what DNA looks like. And one of the first things you can see is there's this little spot where the DNA is twisted together and it's very close. And then this area where it's a little bit further apart, your major and your minor groove. So when you've got DNA, whenever people show it and they show it as being completely equal, that's not accurate. What is more accurate is this. You have a major groove and a minor groove. You have this part here that is very, very close together. And then you have, oops, you have this part here that is further apart. And that has to, they're like little train tracks where your RNA messengers are able to go. So chromatin is like saying if you have your DNA coiled up tightly into an X-shaped chromosome, that's the genetic sweater. If we unfurl that sweater and now making like a ball of yarn, when the ball of yarn is totally unfurled and it's inside of your cell membrane, I just drew the cell nucleus, that's the cell nucleus there, it's called chromatin. Just a whole bunch of vibrating yarn. It's not knit into a sweater. So, and what we've got here, these little things here, those are RNA messengers. So in order to be able to read the information that is written in the scrolls of your DNA, the RNA messengers need to be able to unroll the scrolls and access it. And this is what we see going on here. Run from over. There we go. So here's, again, a big, giant RNA over here that runs along these little train tracks reading. It's a musical score, and that's why I love that it's called the major groove and the minor groove. It's like, it's very groovy. Okay, what does RNA do? Teddy asked. This is a wonderful question. The difference between DNA and RNA. RNA are messengers. So basically the way that this works is, let me rewind, make some room over here. This is your outer cell membrane. This is your nuclear membrane. All of this stuff that I'm drawing here is vibrating yarn of DNA that's called chromatin. And this is, oops, go back. This is, I'll use green. This is an RNA messenger, this big giant green curly thing. So this area of your body is like a very special sacrosanct area. It's the library of your DNA, and it's also your connection to the divine or to the source of consciousness. It's a very, very special place. It's like the library of your life. It's like the Holy of Holies. It's a sanctuary. It's a special, special place. So only the RNA messengers are allowed to go into that very special place. They make a little doorway. They go in through the nuclear membrane. And what they do is read the information that's here written in your DNA, and they make a little copy of it. Like if you went to the most special book room of a very fancy library, you're not allowed to check out the books. You have to wear white gloves, put them on in order to even touch the pages. And if you want to take information out of that special library, you have to take the special books and put them in like a copier, like a Xerox machine. And then you only take out the copies. That's what RNA does. It reads these DNA strings or scrolls, and it makes copies. So here I'm drawing like a little, I don't know if you could see it. It's a little toothy copy, like a little copy of a DNA part. And then the RNA comes out of the nucleus. It exits the library with its little, I hope you can see that color showing up on the background, with its little toothy Xeroxed photocopy is the word, not Xerox. It makes a photocopy of those scrolls, and then it can use this photocopy over here to either make protein structures or share information, like make a hormone or something like that. It can share information with other cells, and it can either, that little photocopy of information can act here in the cell. I'm now, in the intracellular goo, or we can make another doorway. Here's another doorway in the cell membrane, and we can have this part of your DNA that's a photocopy come out of the cell membrane and go somewhere else and affect some other aspect of reality. So DNA is like the long-term storage in the computer of your body. P.S. I'm not a transhumanist. I'm just using analogies that we can all relate to. Your ROM, read-only memory, the long-term data storage of who you are. That's what DNA is. And your RNA is like your RAM, random access memory, the processing power that you have and the capacity to share that information in real time with other cells or other, internal cellular structures. So your RNA is like messengers. And all of this, we'll get to how RNA makes those actual photocopies. And I'm going to end on level 1, but continue this conversation in level 2. But I'm just going to keep going with these images that I've taken up for right now. We're on the topic of epigenetics and methylation. On to the next. So this, sorry, I should not skip around so much. This image, what we're looking at right here, is an unrolled scroll. You can see we've got a line of DNA that's coming here. Let me get a better color. Line of DNA is coming here. And then it wraps around this histone. That thing that's in there is a protein that's called a histone. And that's the process of methylation. And then it comes over here, and then it wraps around this histone, and then it comes over here. The histone is like a spool of thread that the yarn of your DNA wraps around. But look at how much room there is between these two, like kind of wrapped up areas on a spool. There's a lot of room. We can read, let me get rid of a line here. We can read this whole area of your DNA very easily because the string has been unfurled. And now let's go on to the next picture. Here's one that's much more tightly coiled together. Look, there's not very much room. There we go. There's not very much room between these two things here. There's not very much room between these two things here. So if that were like the fingers on my hand, if my fingers are, or this parts of a spring, like a slinky, If my hand is like a slinky, the loops are far apart, the DNA can read what's in the loops. But what if I make the slinky come together like this? Then the RNA cannot read what's between the loops, and those parts stayed hidden. And that can be a good thing, because what's written in those loops? It could write something like how to grow a nasty tumor, how to, get very sick. And you keep those loops stuck together. We don't want to read those loops. But maybe what's in those loops says something like, here's how to heal a tumor. Here's how to dismantle a cellular structure that's diseased and not supposed to be there. Then you want to have those loops available. So the whole idea is, what determines whether our loops are widely open or tightly spaced are emotions, emotional experiences, emotional energy, and intellect, your thoughts. Your thoughts and your feelings actually determine whether your DNA is spread widely apart or spread close together. So some of those thoughts and feelings are programs from human society. Some of them might say, if grandma or grandpa or mommy or daddy had a disease, you are fated to get that disease too. This is the idea of genetic fatalism. Not that everything is a fatal disease, but the idea that if it's in your genetic code, you're going to get it. So if mommy and daddy had excessive moles on their body, then you'll get it too. Too many freckles, they had it, you'll get it too. But the idea is that's not necessarily truthful. That program in your intellect makes your DNA act in a certain way. If you feel it is inevitable to manifest the same diseases that your previous generations and your ancestors manifested, then you will do that. But if you ingest a new idea, like what Bruce Lipton teaches and what I espouse also, this idea that by learning to control your intellect and learning to control your emotions, or being exposed to new programs, new ideas, new software programs, your software changes your hardware. So the idea that when you were a little child that someone told you, hey, death is a reality, your goldfish went bye-bye, that affected how your DNA is spaced. And now me in adulthood telling you, hey, death is not an inevitability, death is an aberration, and hitting that central core timeline that leads to eternal life, what we would call ascension, or this metamorphosis, that is inevitable. That's a new program. And you now get to make a choice. Am I going to believe the old program that says you have to die? Or am I going to believe this new program that says, wait, there's something new? And that's free will. That's like your personal choice. Let me get to all the questions in chat. Let me wrap up level 1, and then I'm going to pick up where I left off in level 2, even though this is mishmash of mashed potatoes and gravy of level 1 and level 2 mixing together on the plate. I just have to recognize that. Patricia is saying, it is fun to put on music and pretend your fingers are the DNA and imagine them furling and unfurling. There is an effect no matter how humble the beginnings. All right, so that is exactly what I do. We're going to get into level 2. Exactly how do we do the flying rainbow lasagna dance? But when you said it's fun to put on music and pretend that your fingers are the DNA, that is how I do the dance. So for me, it's a literal dance. It's an internal dance. That's the big takeaway from level 1. Dancing like a flying rainbow lasagna is an internal dance. I can do it when I'm driving my car. I can do it when I'm in the grocery store. I do it when I'm in the grocery store. And it's very funny. I was at a particular one that I had not been to before. It was like when I had just moved to Southern California, and I went to this random grocery store, and I'm doing my usual shopping, but I'm also flying rainbow lasagna or sending out my vibrations from my guitar, and I know that they're affecting other guitars around me. And this very perceptive woman walked right up to me and she said, you're dancing through everyone else's DNA. And I was like, that's amazing that you could see that. So we had this whole wonderful exchange, this whole wonderful, sharing of ideas. But she was, her inner telescope was very clear, and she was able to see how we're all musicians and we're all affecting one another. So let me wrap up level 1 and go immediately to level 2, where I will get into the actual dance steps. But everything that I've spoken about in level 1, this is not nonsense. This is not mere like get to the real meat and potatoes. This is part of the potatoes, because sharing new ideas is transforming the behavior of our DNA and transforming what is possible to do with our DNA. So that's another thing, the idea that science up until this point, not scientists like Bruce Lipton, but many others, have given us this very concrete and very limiting definition of what DNA is and what it does. And so what we're doing now is reaching beyond that into a more multidimensional, consciousness-based, even spiritual understanding of how DNA is sacred. And that's also why I share some of the ideas that I do about procreation and sexual activity, because that is one time, a very profound time in our life and in our life cycle, when DNA twines together, when you are sharing your DNA and your genetic materials with another person. It's not just about you and your partner, it's also about all of the ancestors, all of the other DNA life forms that are here, and everything that will be a descendant as a result of that. So DNA is when I say spiritual, like that's what I'm talking about. Like it can be very divine. It's a connection to the divine. It's not a mere mechanism. Ending level 1, going on to level 2. Thank you very much. Let me just do my little thing over here.